Now available in paperback and e-readers. John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes, 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Yesterday, the Supreme Court ended affirmative action at colleges and universities all across America. And in their 6-3 decision, they ended affirmative action by saying that colleges and universities could not use race as a factor in selecting qualified applicants for admission into their colleges and universities. Now, many on the left are upset about this decision, but I really don't see how this is going to affect many of these colleges and universities as related to the original definition of affirmative action. Now, affirmative action, when it was first created, was supposed to be giving black men an opportunity to rectify past discrimination that prevented our best and brightest black men from being able to enter into these top colleges and universities or be able to enter the workforce. And when you take a critical look at most colleges and universities, you don't see many black men on campus, especially heterosexual black men, on these campuses outside of those schools that primarily have basketball and football programs. So how has affirmative action been effective as related to getting black men onto college campuses? Critical question I would like to ask many of the white leftists who are in the middle of this uproar as related to the overturning of this affirmative action by the Supreme Court, as related to this case, as related to Harvard and UNC, where you had whites and Asians complaining that they were not going to be able to get opportunities to go to these top universities because of affirmative action. But how were they denied an opportunity when most of the black men who were supposed to be going to these schools as related to affirmative action are not even on campus? Another critical question I would like to ask many of those who are upset about the end of affirmative action and saying that they were denied opportunities to go to these colleges because black men were getting those slots. Well, how many black men, again, go to college overall? Now, again, another critical question I have to ask as related to this entire subject that has so many outraged. You have all these people outraged over the Supreme Court overturning affirmative action on these campuses when it was affirmative that these programs made it where there was no real action being taken to recruit black men, especially heterosexual black men, on these campuses. Now, what's really makes me say that these people are completely full of it as related to this whole outrage over affirmative action being overturned by the Supreme Court is you've got many of these leftists in California who, where they have a leftist supermajority, went out here and overturned affirmative action and made no action to reinstate affirmative action on their campuses and for admission to these campuses and universities in California. So that makes me look at many of these leftists and see how disingenuous they are as related to affirmative action, because they're sitting here talking about, oh, the Supreme Court overturned affirmative action for the country, but the most left-leaning blue state in this country has been without affirmative action, I believe, since about 2006 or so. So really, you're really being disingenuous when you say you want to keep affirmative action, but when you go to a college campus all across this country, you don't see the individual who would benefit the most from these programs, and these programs were designed to give tangible access to colleges and universities, and that group are heterosexual black men. You don't see many black men on college campuses and universities, and whenever we go to get admitted to these colleges, race always played a factor. But what people don't really see is how white supremacy played a factor in keeping most of our brothers out of these colleges. Because what keeps many black men from going to college is the hostile environments we run into in public schools. And as we enter into really hostile environments and war zones like public junior high schools and high schools, we are basically terrorized to the point where we basically get discouraged as related to pursuing higher education. Moreover, the mainstream media goes out here and presents all of these images and narratives that tell us that going to these places for higher education are acting white. So when I look at this whole, again, all of this controversy regarding the Supreme Court and affirmative action, again, affirmative action didn't make it where we created an environment that was one that benefited heterosexual black men or opened a door for them to go into these colleges and universities outside of their athletic prowess in basketball and football. I mean, this didn't open many doors for black men, and this is something that was confirmed to me by one of my family members who works in a college, and he tells me that it's next to impossible they have all of these programs for black men at this college, but it's hard for him to find people to even come into this college because, again, most black men, they have been tormented in places like the public schools where you have these white female teachers who go out here and put them on a fast track to special ed just for being black boys, and then they're tormented in these junior high schools and high schools by these dudes from these single mother households who go out here and when you try to express some intelligence are told that they're acting white, not to mention Madison Avenue in Hollywood, always presenting black men as the ideal of ignorance. So I'm listening to all of these people getting upset, and I'm saying to them that they're all full of it because these affirmative action programs really did not benefit many black men out here. No, many black men who did come through everything had to fight to get through things. And again, these programs that said they used race as a factor, guess who used most of these affirmative action programs to get into college? It wasn't black men who, again, these programs were originally designed for. No, it was white women and other minorities who were the primary beneficiaries of these programs. And again, that's really hilarious when you consider that you have these whites and Asians over at Harvard complaining, talking about, oh, we can't get into these schools. Again, you have an Asian person who is a minority complaining they can't get into these schools. Well, it's not black people that are keeping you out of these schools or slots for these schools because, again, affirmative action was meant for black men. But if you go to any campus, the only black person you'll possibly see are usually just black women on these campuses. And again, that is counter to what, again, originally affirmative action was about. Affirmative action, and I'll say it for the third time, was originally designed to open a door for black men to go through and be able to rectify past discrimination that many of our brightest brothers never, so they could get into those opportunities that their fathers and grandfathers never got. But as we look today, many of our black men are not going through those doors. And what's really sad about this whole decision to end affirmative action as we know it is that we had a boomer bootlick in Justice Clarence Thomas who basically wrote a decision to close that door, again showing me the selfishness of the baby boomers, a generation that basically was given everything that other generations like Gen X never got. They were the ones who were able to benefit the most from affirmative action. It was people like Clarence Thomas and your Kamala Harris, and your Sonia Sotomayor. It was that generation that benefited the most. And again, it's really, I just have to shake my head at Clarence Thomas, who wanted to go out here and say that this whole system was colorblind. No, it's always been inherently racist and white supremacist. And again, what these racist and white supremacists wanted to do was create a disingenuous plan where they were going to say, well, we're going to open the door to let black men in, but then went out here again passively saying, oh, we're going to correct the past discrimination as related to black men, but aggressively went out here and wanted to say, oh, we need to open the door for quote-unquote minorities, and then let black women take the position that the black man was supposed to have. Our best and brightest brothers, basically, they were hobbled again from the day they entered kindergarten by these white female teachers who basically wanted to put them on the road to special ed, never seeing their intelligence, and they want to sit there and say, oh, that we're upset about affirmative action ending, when affirmative action on these colleges and universities never really benefited most black boys out here who were looking to go on to get higher learning. No, most of the people who got that was black women, Hispanics, white women, and other minorities, and they were the ones who primarily received all of the benefits from affirmative action. And what's happening here is that the Supreme Court is basically calling the bluff of the white leftists, who have basically been full of it from minute one. Many of these white leftists who are running these colleges and universities and saying that they're so tolerant, they're just completely full of it. And I say that they're completely full of it because you never really wanted any black men on your campus, and you didn't want black men on your campus because you did not want a black man to have the same education as a white man, and you did not want a black man to go out here and compete against you. This is the main reason why many of those on the left ended affirmative action in places like California. They ended affirmative action because, again, their reason for ending it, again, as related to using race as a factor, was because they did not want to see black men going out here to compete. No, they have no problem with letting in other minorities, but when you look at black male recruitment at these colleges, black male recruitment at these colleges continues to remain at an all-time low, and that is even with affirmative action. And again, that recruitment is at an all-time low because many of those young brothers are hobbled as they are entering into kindergarten. As those boys enter into kindergarten, they are put on a prison pipeline because the white female teachers go out of their way to go out here and try to label these boys special ed. They try to label them as having ADHD. They go out here and put these boys, black boys, on medications, and these boys never wind up on a road to higher learning because they are hobbled again. And as they go through that education system, they are bombarded with all of these negative messages telling them that they're acting white. If they go for academics, they're telling them that they're not intelligent. They have even other beta males going in and trying to get them focused on nonsense at all. But people want us to get all upset because the Supreme Court has ended the farce known as affirmative action. Because if affirmative action, people were really genuine about it, you would see black men on these campuses. You would have seen a enrollment of black men go up over the years. And I can tell you, as somebody who did go to college, and being the only black man in the room, or sometimes being one of only 2 black men in the room, again, when I go to these colleges, I don't see many brothers on these campuses, but you want me to believe that everybody's so outraged when you're really just completely full of it. Because if you wanted black men on your campuses, you would be working on building them up from day one as they enter into kindergarten. So when I listen to these people getting all outraged and bent out of shape, talking about how racist this decision is. No, there have been a whole series of racist decisions that are designed to keep black men from achieving excellence, and there have been a whole host of these decisions made, and they want me to believe, oh, they can't pick race as a factor, which is really, again, BS, because these schools are just going to pick who they want to pick, and they're going to pick who they want to pick. This is the same arbitrary way they've been doing things for years, but what they wanted to do was put on this veneer to make it look like there was a legal process, and now the Supreme Court has stripped away that veneer and that facade, and these racists now have to stand up and just say, we want to pick the white guy, we want to pick the Asian guy, we want to pick the Hispanic guy, we want to pick the Arab guy, we want to pick the Indian guy, and we want to pick the black woman. We want to pick all of these other people and give them benefits, including that white woman. I mean, everybody has gotten benefits from affirmative action except the individual who it was designed for. And again, this was by design because, again, after they created the affirmative action programs for black men, they decided to make it about the black woman, to say, oh, we're going to kill two birds with one stone, where she's black and she's a woman, so we can go out here and get her to emasculate the black man by getting her education over the black man who's already been hobbled by the just corrupt school system and white female teachers. So I listened to this, and again, you got a lot of leftists, again, upset over this, and again, you've got a lot of people on the right upset over this, but both sides never wanted to see black men be able to show how intelligent we are. I mean, most of these individuals, they never wanted to see the intelligence of a heterosexual black man like myself. They did not want to see us be able to achieve academically. And again, they got a black bootlick like Clarence Thomas to rubber stamp this, because that's what the white supremacists on both the left and the right wanted to do. They wanted to make Clarence Thomas the scapegoat for them being able to do what they wanted to do, even though in the state of California they've already done this. And again, this is your blue state run by leftists that have gone out here and done this, but you'll have people saying, oh, it's the evil right Supreme Court and the supermajority right-wing Supreme Court that did this, but both sides did not want affirmative action in place because they did not want to consider race as a factor, not because of it being about race overall. No, it was all about it being about black men being able to gain admission into these colleges and universities. And again, the word race was a code word for black men because they didn't mind having their quote-unquote minorities be able to get into these schools, but they don't want black men into these schools, and they don't really want black men to have that opportunity. And again, black men have not taken that opportunity because they're so discouraged as related to the hostile environment that is our racist education system. And people, they're sitting there acting like, oh, we're so upset because it's racist. No, our academic system has been racist from minute one. And you're not going to get me to sit there and get upset over the end of affirmative action, because affirmative action was not really providing me with any action towards getting any sort of opportunities at any of these so-called top universities, and it was none of these programs that ever benefited any black men. I mean, when you look at these affirmative action programs, white women got more benefits than them, and now they're going to have to find another excuse for their boyfriends and the dudes that they're being the side piece to get them to open a door for them to go to school. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my positive fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my sorority novel, The Thetas, or my vampire novel, Eternal Night, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available on Lulu. John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at lulu.com today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.